We're going to continue with podcast number 2 on the book, The Art of Profitability by Adrian Slywotzky.
Business models galore.
Oh, I thought you were going to say business time. It's business. It's business time.
Business time.
I'm going to start right away by asking you, do you want to know the business model where unique products command massive margins because nobody else offers them?
Specialty business model?
That's exactly right. So if you're stuck selling commodity products where customers only care about the price, and if you're exhausted because you're stuck in a price war and whatever you say doesn't really differentiate your product with the competitor products, then step into my office because I want to talk to you about the specialty product business model. So if I offered you something that was so unique that customers had no true alternative, now would you be interested in talking about that as a business?
Absolutely.
I harp on the podcast a lot of times about segmenting the market. And I feel this is part of segmenting the market where I say like, oh, no. All those other products, they're not like mine. Mine is unique. Because some of this specialty business product is like, it may not necessarily be a true special product. It just might be a slightly different take on a normal commodity.
Yeah, or just have a few extra features sprinkled in there. Right? And just hype up that. Typically, I find though here in this model, you have to be an early entrant in here. Because if you have a product already and you have competition, it becomes harder to play in this model.
The market segmentation I was talking about. For example, like CrowdStrike. Like who's out there competing with CrowdStrike?
Right.
The deep threat detection / cybersecurity that CrowdStrike offers. Not a lot of people with the broad set of offerings. When you peel them back, you're like, oh, I can find a half a dozen companies that do all the same things, but they're not CrowdStrike. Because again, they've segmented the market saying like, oh, just sign on with us with all your stuff. Move over from GoDaddy or whoever your domain is hosting and just move over to us.
Strike's a good example. I found another example kind of like on a local level might be some of these people that make craft products and they sell them at farmers markets or places like that. Often these are premium priced and they're local, but there's a certain allure to what they're selling, especially to the audience that covet this, right? So maybe those products, like the artisanal food segment.
Oh, food. Beyond Meat was another one. Like they were very early in the like, oh, we're special. We're not necessarily meat. We're all plant-based everything. And they were one of the early entrants into the market to segment the market. I'm sure they had followers, fast followers that kind of follow their business model, but I can't think of a single one by name.
Right.
Yeah. So strengths of the specialty product business model, I would think they're, high margin, reduced competition we already talked about. So reduced competition is when you segmented the market and you're the one that segmented the market, like Beyond Meat, for example, you basically can charge what you want to charge for your segment of the market. Or I guess in Beyond Meat's example, they're tied to meat in and of the equivalent.
I think the other thing of it is, along with charging a premium for your product is commanding an increased brand loyalty.
Yeah.
Because these are niche products typically, right? And people who like those really love them. And so they'll talk about those products to other people that might be interested as well.
If Beyond Meat is an example, there probably are competitor companies like Beyond Meat that I'm not mentioning because I don't know about them. It's like your competition has big shoes to follow if they want to catch up and be seen as equals in the market that was established by the company that established that brand.
Anybody following a leader like that, even software, it's harder for them. It's a harder hill to climb because you're trying to now take market share away from somebody who's already established themselves. So consequently, you end up having nuances to your product. So you're trying to carve out a different niche now. Maybe adjacent, but still different. Otherwise, it's like I said, it's a hard hill to climb. So what are some of the challenges in this model?
So the weaknesses of this business model, and you probably could have already guessed, is limited market size. Like that would be the first one that I want to jump to is limited market size. If you're the Beyond Meats of the world, like cybersecurity is a great one. I figure that every company that's serious about cybersecurity already has a cybersecurity provider. So like that market is pretty small.
It's a small market in this model. However, you are charging premium prices to kind of offset that a little bit. So yeah, it is still a challenge. Yeah. I think the natural one to follow that up with would be, well, the market's small, so how do you grow bigger? The scaling challenges exist in this model.
The one thing in this category that bothers me the most about this specialty product, I was at a company one time where we did a specialty product like this, and we had to constantly compete with competitors that were clones, but they were just like AI garbage clones, and the customer couldn't tell the difference between a well-crafted, well-researched product and AI garbage versus well-researched, human-written. Maybe those humans that are researching are using AI as well, but they have to check their sources. They have to follow back on stuff. Like, think about cybersecurity, that kind of stuff. You have to educate the market at the same time as you build products for that market, which is the same as cybersecurity. I mean, you have to constantly be educating the market about the threats that are out there. Otherwise, they have no idea, why do I need your solution? Well, hey, there's these new exploits, and are you on these operating systems? Are you using these things? Like, there's legitimate things. It's not all scare tactics, although that is part of trying to get people to move to your solution. But educating customers why they need your product, why your product is different from all the rest of this like AI slop on the market, that's going to take, especially if you're the product manager, that's going to take a big part of your time. And it's going to be a big problem too, the more competitors that flood your market trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'll give you an example of that where it's actually happened like that. So most financial companies, advisors, brokers, etc., they now have these robo-advisors, right, that they offer online.
Right.
You can do it all yourself for no fee, or you could use a robo-advisor for a fee, or you could go custom with a human advisor, and that charges even more.
Right.
So these robo-advisors vary across different companies, right? And each company is touting the advantages of using theirs. Trying to wedge their way into a market in which there are more and more entrants every day. So it becomes that much more difficult. Too many players in the same market.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly this. So the specialty product business model, like, it's all about owning a unique product category where there's not a lot of competition because you truly are unique and special. The problem is like the perception of that uniqueness. Is that a real word, uniqueness? That's something you have to constantly be crafting and moving along. And it's better if you're directly talking to customers on a regular basis so that you're helping them stay educated to keep ahead of just AI slop that's out there, invading like every product area. But I can only think about like your finance people being like, but what are you doing with what do you charge that time to? Like, if you're having those kinds of discussions, this business model is not for you.
Absolutely, yes. And the other side of it is with the finance equation, you have to be constantly innovating in this if you're in this model.
Right.
So where's that R&D money going? Could be asked the question, right? When are you going to monetize the investment that we're making, right?
So if you have questions about the specialty product business model, we're all ears.
We are indeed. Let us know.
So let's move on to the next business model, the local leadership business model. And I'm interested in talking about this one because I feel like this kind of borders on the podcast business model here, which is, do you want to know the business model where dominating your local market makes you more profitable than any national competitors that you may face? Then you're in the right place. So are you competing with national chains that have deep pockets, way deeper pockets than you ever could have? Or are you individual solopreneurs like us, like with facing off against people blasting stuff out into the, sorry, I'm trying not to call out Lenny, where they have like teams of people and they're just projecting stuff out on the internet. If you're frustrated and you can't compete on pricing with a broader market, then maybe you don't have to. That's the local leadership business model. So if you become so dominant in your local market that customers choose you over any national alternatives, which again, like, now I feel like I'm talking directly about us here. If your local relationships and expertise create an advantage for you as a business, that's just untouchable. That's the local leadership business model.
I think it's a really powerful model myself, because as long as you have those relationships and you're engaged locally with your, not only your customers, but just the local market. You're getting feedback, you're getting signals, and you're coming up with products that satisfy those needs. You're going to prevail. And it's harder for someone else, a national brand, to break in because they're not even aware of the nuances of what's needed at the local level.
I'll give you a few that like everybody that's here in the South knows. Publix, like that's a regional brand, believe it or not. Actually, it used to be a Florida brand, but it's a regional brand. on the West Coast, In-N-Out Burger. I don't think they have In-N-Out Burgers here.
I haven't seen any.
Dutch Brothers Coffee, like those are all, they started as local chains. I mean, even Starbucks started as a local chain. They started as local chains, and everything I just listed has become a regional chain. But it doesn't even have to be that. It could be one city, just like we were talking about the podcast. It's like we on the podcast, we're more popular in Tampa, obviously, than we are anywhere else in the world, like by a long shot. You know what I mean? By like 75% or whatever. Other than Berlin. Like, thanks for everyone listening in Berlin. Yeah, where was I going? But the strengths of this model, that's where I think I was going to. The strengths of this model. The strength of this model is like, hey, like your community trusts you. It doesn't matter what community you have, especially with the podcast. Like people bending over backwards when you run a podcast to give you advice. Sure. And it all stinks. The advice that is good is like you need to build a community. It was sort of a little bit of the last model we talked about. But on top of that is like you need to build the community that you're selling to, quote, selling to. And if the community is here in Tampa, that should be easy for us. And then we know the businesses that are here and we know the people that run the businesses here. So you can connect and have an intimacy that there's no way that like somebody from whatever regional, national, what is going to break in the middle of. They might replace it because they're super cheap or some other business model. Not going to erode that business model.
Used to be the mom and pop shops were like that, stores, right? Yeah. On the street corner. They knew everybody who went in there. But I mean, the other one is community banks. They know their customers very, very well.
That's right.
And they're thriving in a market where national banks may not be doing as well.
That's right. HEB in Texas was another one that's regional that I didn't take note of. But the other thing about your mom and pop stores or companies or whatever, consultants, whatever it is the company might pay more for that individual consultancy or that individual person than they would for a chain. I think about in software development, I think about the Accentures of the world or the TCSs of the world. Whereas like, yeah, I could get somebody for half the price to 2/3 of the price.
Right.
Or I can get somebody from my local consultancy that is here in Tampa that could occasionally come to my corporate office if I need them. And I'm willing to pay a premium for that.
That's a great example. Yeah, I agree.
So there's a trust factor there that kind of goes unspoken because there are weaknesses of this model. And exactly like the consultancies I just mentioned, the Accentures and the TCSs of the world, like, hey, the money drives everything.
Absolutely.
And, your people are good and everything, but at some point, got to get that every little last penny. Got to scrape them off the floorboards and look through the couch cushions.
Kind of segueing off that, you're also more vulnerable to fluctuations in the economy, right?
That's right.
If you're a local player only, I mean, you can really weather the storm as well as the national ones can.
I mean, it's the dependency on the economy being fair, let's say, at least fair in your area, but basically not taking downturn. I guess if the economy took a downturn in your area, that's when the shift would happen to be like, well, maybe I will go with TCS. And I know that it's a little less efficient and I get worse code and whatever, and I'll have some problems. But hey, I'm spending 60% of the money I was spending, and I'm willing to do that for a period of time. And then I bring some people, just like everyone using AI to replace their employees who are not using AI at all.
Other than just the price factor, it's also just having uncertainty that the local shop's not going to be around.
I can see that too. This is the old nobody got fired for going with IBM type of thing.
The same one, yes.
And then if you are the person running that local business and this is your business model, it's knowing that at some point the local leadership business model will permeate. And there is a saturation point with this business model that could scare some people.
Yeah, growth challenges could include being able to recruit talent locally.
That's true. Talent acquisition could be a problem, depending on what market you're in.
Depends also if you're in a small place or a town versus a big city.
Also, yeah. So the local leadership business model, that's about dominating a geographic market through deep community relationships and local expertise. Another one we left out is like, well, it actually requires you to get out into your community. So this is an interesting one. I feel this one's like, the larger the company gets, the more underserved this model. The more, like, I think this is the way to sneak under big companies right here. Like 100% of the time.
Definitely agree.
If you have stories or questions about the local leadership business model, let us know in the comments.
Absolutely.
And we're going to move on to ask the question, do you want to know the business model where processing millions of tiny transactions makes you incredibly profitable? Then step right up. Step right up? Like, where are you stepping up to? I don't know.
Step up to the bar.
Oh, hey, have a drink. And I want to ask you some questions here. Sit down in my office, partner. Are you focused on landing big deals while ignoring massive, small transactional opportunities? Are you leaving money on the table because you think small transactions are not worth your time? Oh boy, if I had a nickel for every time that I heard, we want to sell massive multi-enterprise level, multi-million dollar. Oh boy, the volume can beat value. And that's just not it's like there's some people that are immune to that advice right there. So let's talk about if you process millions of small transactions and those tiny margins add up to massive profit. It's the transaction scale business model.
About some examples. I mean, the one that obviously comes to mind really quickly is the payment processing using point of sale. Like each transaction is small potentially, especially if you don't have to be buying $200 items.
I was thinking anyone that takes transactions on Stripe, or I was thinking about anybody who opens a storefront in Shopify or
Etsy or whatever.
Robinhood. Any of those ones that like each individual trade or whatever is like it's a tiny. They're taking they're shaving pennies off the trade, but still they're doing millions and millions of trades every day. So like those millions of pieces of pennies, like I think we're describing the plot of Office Space, actually. Never mind. I take it all back.
Volume can beat value.
Volume can beat value. The one big one we didn't talk about that they literally wrote the book on this one was Visa. I mean, Visa, PayPal, Stripe, like all the fintech bros, they basically invented this business. They didn't really invent this business model, but if we're saying Palantir invented customer solutions, we're saying PayPal invented this one. Then that's what we're saying.
What a world we live in.
And then of course stock exchanges.
Yes.
Yeah. So strengths of this business model: obviously massive volume potential, small margins, millions of transactions. Nobody's noticing you're cutting a penny off of here, penny off of there, or whatever.
The brokerage business is big on this because, even if they don't charge you fees, let's say, because that seems to be the recent trend now, they're making money on the spread. And the spread is bigger than what a lot of people think. But they are making money every time you're selling or buying.
Right. And also the benefit of this one, unlike other business models, is one customer or two customers leave. Like your whole business is not at risk. The diversification here will keep you afloat. And like, I would honestly be surprised if you really knew. You probably know who your biggest transactions come from, but like the rest of them, the lower 50% is probably so diverse.
Straight in the back.
Yeah.
I think getting to the point here where you can really start to make money, that investment is constant regardless of the size of the total addressable market, which is fantastic. If you think about it, there's not many models where you could stake that claim. Right.
The acquisition of the total addressable market, I think, is alluring because you have a very low customer acquisition cost.
Yeah.
Because there's so many. I mean, like Stripe, for example, like what is the customer acquisition cost of Stripe for people to sign up and just start taking payment? I mean, it's got to be near zero. And then obviously scalability. You build your system right, you're basically infinitely scalable. It costs you near zero to onboard people. Everything's profit at that point.
Yeah.
So, wow, this sounds like we should quit our jobs and be fintech bros. There's got to be weaknesses in this business model. Let's talk about them. Obviously, you're going to scale forever and let anyone sign up immediately. There's going to be some infrastructure investment.
Yes.
You're going to need to ask your developers, hey, don't just phone this one in. Build it in a way where it could scale infinitely forever. Right. That's got to cost a couple bucks.
It does. And you've also, so two things, right? One is you've got to protect your customers' data. That requires that you get your security.
Right.
That requires investment. And the flip side of not doing that is massive rep damage. You screw up once, guess what? It's going to take you a while to get back up because there are other people that you're competing in the space for. Fraud goes along with that. So it's all about protecting your customers' data, and there's an investment involved there, which is big.
Other than like outsized spending on infrastructure, and actually making it like when people are crying like, oh, we'll just move fast and break the law. You can't really do that. You kind of need to be sure that it theoretically will scale, because you can't be running out in the middle of the night and having a fire drill when 1,000 people on board or whatever like that. That's not going to work. So you have to pay more up front to be ready for it to scale. The issue with this business model is it's like the scale business model, but you need a bunch of money to make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
You need a bunch of transactions to be able to support a system like this, because the system itself is a little more expensive than a normal, quote, system that I would talk about in software development.
It's very difficult to land on
and complex.
Yeah, the complexity is huge. It's very difficult to land on a scale that you can deliberately plan for. It's probably more realistic to think that you can achieve managed growth. So you only know what you know, and if you don't know, you can't really scale for that, because it's a money drain at some point.
Yeah. The transaction scale business model, it's about capturing tiny margins on a massive amount of volume. And it's obviously it's the fintech model, as we've pointed out. I wonder if you, like, the AI companies maybe are doing this with credits and tokens and whatnot. I don't know, a little less, because it's not really their model. So if you have ideas where this model is at play, let us know in the comments. We will move on. We will burn on to the value chain position business model. Do you want to know the business model where positioning yourself at the most profitable point in the value chain makes you rich and everyone else sad?
I want to know that, because we're all working hard and we're not getting where we need to get to.
Working hard and barely making ends meet. Well, you might be living in America. Sorry, that was vote for Pedro. Are you stuck in the least profitable part of the value chain while you watch others in different parts of the value chain get rich? Are you upset because your effort is not earning an outsized amount of profit? Your positioning in the value chain does. Well, then we've just identified you need to move to the most profitable position in your industry's value chain. So if you stop competing where the margins are thin and move where the money is, then you'll be in the money. The value chain position business model. So TSMC dominates chip manufacturing. It's probably not a great example. Let me see if there's a better example.
I think the distribution company example is a good one. They're kind of wedged themselves in between the producers and the consumers. So they're a broker.
Yeah.
I mean, producers can't really get to consumers without these companies.
Is that what this is? Is this?
I think that's what this is.
Did we run across the billionaire market business model right now? Because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like the NVIDIAs of the world. NVIDIA doesn't manufacture anything. Like TSMC manufactures all the chips. Like they, quote, design them. I mean, as far as you and I know, they design them, and then somebody else builds them. Like the same, like Spotify. Like Spotify doesn't create any art or music or anything. Then they barely pay people. They barely pay anyone. DoorDash, like they don't make any food. Right. Like they've Amazon, I would put in this category as well, because they position themselves between the people looking to sell goods and the people looking to buy goods, and they just kind of like wedge themselves in the middle. Oh boy, we're getting very Marxist on the podcast now. So there are strengths of the business model of being in the middle of everything and taking control of everything. That's what I'm saying.
I think this sense of essential component, really, kind of in the chain, the essential link in the chain, that's where you need to be, right? Because the chain gets broken if you're not there, which means you have to be there, which means you're not really producing anything.
Yes.
But you are relaying from one end to the other and collecting your cut in the middle.
The funny thing about this is, like, you just said exactly my feelings about this business model. You're not, as the intermediary, you're not really doing anything here, but you are optimizing a potentially high profit point in the chain. So like the Amazon thing is like we guarantee next day delivery or whatever.
Right.
Like you're optimizing a particular pain point, and that's basically how you're making your whole solution. Is you're optimizing one thing, the shipping. Right. You know, and how you do that? Well, you've got warehouse space in every major American city and blah, 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 blah. You got people, automation, all kinds of stuff. And boy, the market power of controlling all those points in the value chain. Like, again, with the Amazon's a great example because it's super easy for anyone who's not quite sure about this. TSMC makes all the chips. I mean, the value chain is like anybody can dream up a cool chip with a bajillion transistors on it, but only TSMC can actually make the chip. Only one company, one facility can build it. Yikes, that's a problem. You want to maximize value, like that would be the way. It's like to figure out where along the chain you can insert yourself and basically take control, or if you don't take control of it, to optimize that particular process. I mean, other people can build chips.
Sure.
It just costs them 30 times the...
investment is a huge obstacle there. But they've already made the investment, right? And now they're capitalizing on that investment. So not everybody can do that. A distribution company,
So-
same thing. They
so-
have a network in place.
The strength of this one obviously is optimizing your margin. I mean, you basically can pick your margin on this
Sure.
one. For TSMC, I mean, they basically could charge what they want within reason until they start making it unprofitable for the parent company or whatever. But up until that point,
Which is a pretty flexible rate.
and then the market power gives them leverage to basically never be underbid. I mean, you said it in your point is like, well, who's going to come up with the capital to build more manufacturing? Yeah, right. Good luck.
We'll basically need you.
And the other advantage here, at the point where you get enough capital, or you get enough strategic dominance, or you can move up and down that value chain, I would expect. Amazon could just start selling. Actually, Amazon did because they have the Amazon Basics, where they just manufacture their own low-cost electronics or accessories or whatever, and they just sell their own. So they have moved up and down the value chain, which is scary for people that get on board with them early and then start turning around one day and it's like, that looks a lot like my product. Too late, you're out of business.
You already put the barriers in place.
Yeah. So is there weaknesses to this business model?
Every
So
business model.
let's talk about this one. The one that I would think of would be the capital requirements necessary for
Upfront
this.
investment.
So like if you want to have 2-day shipping anywhere you are in the world, country, whatever, boy, that takes a lot of capital.
Yeah, you got to have that infrastructure and everything else.
Right. And then you got to upkeep it.
Logistics and everything. And you got to upkeep it.
Yeah, I mean those robots are not going to enslave themselves.
You have to make robots to enslave robots.
Yeah, we got robots. Anyway, and then also you're just waiting for a market disruption. You know,
And if you're in this model, you have to develop expertise in adjacent spaces as well. In the case of
Right.
Amazon, initially it wasn't an issue for them to worry about logistics and all of that, but they had to become experts in logistics and shipping. So these are adjacent to original book selling business.
And also one other weakness that it's probably worth pointing out is everybody who sells on Amazon, I'm sure, probably has their own store. And probably, if they could, easily offer a discount to be like, hey, buy it from me. Maybe it's not 2-day shipping. Maybe it's 3-day shipping, 4-day shipping or whatever. But here's whatever discount you get from buying it straight from me and cutting Amazon out of it. I would imagine that this is the advantages that should come out of the era of vibe coding is there should be some kind of package or something that anyone can just copy paste to be like, here's my item on the Amazon store. And here's a link in the description that goes over to my store and gives you the same thing for 10% off. Whatever. It's something like that.
It sounds fanciful. The issue really is being able to compete at scale with a juggernaut, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, Amazon's not going to let you put your own links in their descriptions to start with. Best you could do, if you can leverage that with them and create the contracts, is to have your own store, but it's still an Amazon store. Mm-hmm. So the fulfillment aspects of it, they will take care of that, and you can't get your hands in there because they've already got their paws into the value chain at that level, which is the most profitable segment in the chain itself.
Well, the value chain position business model, it's about finding and capturing the most profitable position in any particular industry's value chain, right? And the value chain it's a very mushy topic, right? Value chain. But I'm interested in this one, and there's other industries that we probably could talk about more. We didn't even talk about regulatory being a weakness of this business model where the government just comes in and smashes, Hulk smash with the business model. But we're going to move along because we have a ton of other ones to get to. Do you want to know about the business model where timing market cycles perfectly makes you rich while everyone else goes broke? Ooh. Are you getting crushed by market downturns while competitors somehow stay profitable? Are you frustrated because you make money in good times but lose it all in the bad times? Well, then you might be betting on meme stocks. That's what you might be doing right now. So everyone has the same cycles in business, like the ups and downs, right? But what if you understood the industry cycles and positioned yourself to profit in upturns and keep even in downturns? Well, that's what the cycle business model is all about. There are no role models in the cycle. Here, let me see if I have anything in the cycle. You're not going to like any of my examples in the cycle business market.
I can think of one.
Okay.
So if you're a financial broker, that is not a fiduciary, by the way. Fees, the market went down, I'm sorry, but you have to pay my fees. The market
Yes.
went up, you got to still pay my fees. They do very well.
So is this going to be the predatory market segment business plan right now? Is this the scamming old people using AI business plan? Because that's what it's going to sound like. There's no role models here. If you're looking for a business plan that's like, I could have a good night's sleep at the end of the day. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, the cycle business models are all of the private equity, global management firms, like you were talking about, the what are they called? The asset management, the ones that own the big, what are they called? The mutual fund owners that extract a fee, whether it makes money or lose money, they're extracting that fee every month. I think about CarMax. I think about Rocket Mortgage. I think about guys like that, like big mortgage brokers. I think about insurance companies. Like, they're going to take their cut regardless.
Yes.
You know, hey, economy's in a downturn. Nobody's driving. It's COVID. Your rates are going up. Wait, why are my rates going up? Like, nobody's even driving on the road. The accidents are down 50% or whatever because literally no one's driving. Rates are going up.
Same thing with home insurance, right? I mean, you had a great year for hurricanes. Guess what? Doesn't matter. Your rates are going up. And they blame inflation or something.
That's right.
The wind went the wrong way or whatever.
Ooh. The strengths of this model, if you are Ebenezer Scrooge, let me put it that way, because I beeped out and edited out what I said earlier in the podcast, are massive. I mean, the timing advantage of understanding the cycles and stick with mortgage companies, for example. When rates go up, and if you're a real estate investor, for example, when the rates go up and all the sales slow down, when people's homes are on the market for a long time and prices start coming down, what a great time. Market timing. Obviously, the private equity firms are great at this because they have people on staff that just do risk management.
Sure.
So they're looking for acquisition opportunities to bring like large amounts of cheap assets into the fold. Or I guess if I'm going to try to defend this for a second, I'm not going to, but if I'm going to try to defend this for a second, the private equity firms of the world are going to say, hey, we've done a review of this business and we see the risk is low and we see what they're doing with the money they have and the people they have. If they had more money or more opportunity, or if they were joined with us or whatever, with more opportunity in the market, they could be doing a lot more business. That's the way they'll look at it. So they'll say, like, this company is basically like underutilized, understaffed, undermonetized,
company has a high upside.
something like that. There's a term for it I can't remember right now. And the VC guys are the same way. This company easily could be bringing in X-fold percentage over whatever profits, and that's what they'll look at. It's not exactly the same as the way I pitched it, of like, you want to build a company that breaks even when the market is terrible and makes a profit while the market is good, where your competitors in the same industry are losing when the market is down and struggling even when the market's up. That's how to pull ahead of your competition. Like, being super shady, I don't know if that's a great way to go about it, but I mean, listen, these people make a lot of money.
They have the luxury of being able to plan for downturns way before they happen.
Well, if we're planning for downturns, let's talk about weaknesses of this business model, because you need a bunch of money to make this happen. The people that are taking money every month and charging their customers more or whatever, and they don't care who cancels or who leaves or whatever, like, well, that's great. It must be great to have so much money that you don't care about churn. You don't care about. I mean, they probably care about it, but like, no. Oh, it was the Chipotle CEO recently, where they had the chart of like how much they've raised prices over the years, and like they were complaining that people can no longer afford their burritos. They're not burritos, because burritos would be ito in the. Anyway, that's a Spanish joke for everyone that listens to podcast number 1, by the way. But yeah, you need capital. You need a massive amount of capital to be able to keep smashing your customers down, and also like the timing. I mean, you can miss with this timing. You can. You just can't miss by a lot.
Those bad events when they happen, black swans.
Right.
Yeah. If you diversify enough, you should be able to weather those storms, right?
Yeah. And then obviously you're going to get hit by market volatility just like everyone else. It's just, there's like a psychological game going on, which I say psychological, or what I really mean is there's like a business risk management game, and just a lot of people that I've not worked for enough evil private equity firms that like have calculations and like actuaries to measure that risk.
Yeah.
But most businesses don't. They don't. I mean, they're like, they got a thumb in the air figuring out which way the wind blows, measuring risk. They're not doing it with numbers.
Yeah, I want to lump in health insurance companies and pharmaceuticals into that.
That's a good one.
It doesn't matter how fit the population's getting. They are going to continue to raise their price.
I mean, think about the cycle of car insurance. I mean, the cycle of car insurance is like they don't want you to stay with the same insurer. They want you to constantly be moving and churning out and seeking better rates or whatever. They're going to keep raising cable, same way. They want you to keep moving. And if you stay because you're lazy, suddenly you're paying $150 while your neighbor is paying $48 or whatever. That's just the way their business model is. Again, not to go out on a high note here, but this is the worst business model in the world right here because it's super predatory.
Unless you are the business in this business model, then you're like, well, it's what the market will bear.
Right. So are you a terrible person? That's what I'm saying. Do you have scruples? Maybe the cycle business model is not for you. It's about understanding timing and when to buy low and sell high. Hey, you're profiting from volatility. I mean, maybe you want to be a day trader.
Yeah.
Tell us we're wrong. Tell us how Palantir is not evil, please.
Because we'd love to have a chat.
That's right. Let's talk about the after-sale business model. And I'm not really sure this is a real business model, but
this is a real business model.
If you want to know the business model where you make more money after the sale than on the actual sale,
this is absolutely a real business model.
Okay, well, if you make all your profit on the initial sale and then you forget about the customer after that, oh boy, if you make a massive amount of revenue and you have a third-party market or whatever that comes in and deals with maintenance and support and service, and you're missing out on all that money and you're mad about it, step back a second. Hang on, I got more categories. If you're frustrated watching car dealerships make more through their service departments than through their dealer sales side, then step into my office. If you're leaving money on the table, step into my office. Because if I told you that you make thin margins on the initial sale and then you have a massive amount of profit on the back end for ongoing service and maintenance and whatnot, then you might be interested in the after sale business model.
Yeah, let's look at a couple of examples of these. We talked about a model where you could buy hardware like printer for X amount of money and then keep paying over and over for ink. That is after sales, really.
Yes.
I mean, the other one that, obviously the automotive industry, right? You're paying X for your car and then they lock you in, etc.
Tesla, also the supercharging network for Tesla. Let's see, Peloton, which is more like a subscription company than it is like a workout machine company, right? And also, if we're talking about exploitative things that have really rankled people's feelings in the news, John Deere. Because if you remember, you had to go back to them for parts and service. They locked out all their stuff, with software. So there are quite a few in this category that you wouldn't necessarily think of.
Electronics. I mean, you buy electronics and then you buy, warranty. So the warranty, I mean, they get you. So things like appliances, you buy washer, dryer, whatever. And then you buy warranted for 3 years because things only warranted for 1 year. They can stack them. And then at the end of the 3 years or before then, they'll hit you up to extend again for another 3 years at a higher price because now appliances are older, more susceptible to breaking. So these are examples of the after sale business model.
And also there's other ones that normal folks, unless you work for a company like this, you probably would never think of, Boeing. You think you can just go down to Advanced Auto and buy a new part for a jet engine? You probably got to go back to Boeing or whatever company they contract with to build those parts. But I mean, so it's the maintenance contracts. I would imagine, for a company like Boeing, for example, I would imagine the maintenance contracts are probably worth you build your original airplane for whatever $100 million or whatever it is you build a plane, $60 million, whatever it is you build a plane for. Yeah. But then the ongoing maintenance contracts to be able to get parts, new engines, stuff like that. Like Rolls-Royce, for example, the engines they build for aircraft. Do you think they make the majority of their money on their cars or off of the aircraft engine division?
Right.
That Rolls-Royce doesn't have, they don't make airplanes. There's a lot of companies that you probably would never think of that are super profitable just because they have these contracts. They just do these contracts, and it's a massive amount of money. And some of them are controlled by the main company. Some of them are not. But high margin. I think about the U.S. government and fighter jets, for example, where they have to buy like a silly little part. Like there's people on YouTube all the time that you can see, but there's some of these like defense acquisition guys that I follow on LinkedIn. I'm going to start spitting when I say LinkedIn. Terrible, but it's almost as bad as Jira. Like some of these defense acquisition guys that I follow on LinkedIn, like they're showing like this little tiny little like metal part that we can't get except for the manufacturer that's like $5,000 that we started 3D printing it for $3.
I think that model that's been there for decades is now being disrupted by technologies like 3D. So there are other countries where they couldn't find, forget about fighter jets and stuff. I mean, they couldn't find spare parts for imported cars,
right?
Unless you went to the manufacturer. Now what they're doing is fashioning them. And before 3D printing became a thing, they were already creating those out of bare lump of metal. They were actually fashioning parts and manufacturing them. Could be subpar, doesn't matter, but way affordable than going back to the manufacturer. So now 3D printing, anyone can print out parts like that. So that model is going to be disrupted even further going forward. Maybe not quite with the Boeing scale, but on a lower level.
The customer lock-in, especially with John Deere, where they like locked out with software their parts, where you can't just change parts. Yeah, that's the strength of this model, but also like, ooh, I almost want to pivot right into weaknesses where it's like in the weaknesses of this model. Customer resentment is a big thing with this one because John Deere got in a lot of trouble in the press and got beat up pretty hard, rightfully so, by the way, with this customer resentment of like, why? Like, I just got to replace some mechanical part. And then it's sort of like the part has some sort of electronic component in it that's stamped with like a VIN number or something like that. Like in the computer, it's stamped with a VIN number. So it knows that you've changed out a part.
And then it shuts down. That's predatory, I feel. But I think an example of this might be if you have any extended warranties for your iPhone or AppleCare.
Yeah, AppleCare, yeah, good one.
That's an example. The risk you run here is disruption through a third party being able to offer the same kind of service. Mm-hmm. But of course, in the case of Apple, hey, they have to play within the Apple walled gardens.
I mean, AppleCare is an interesting one because there's like an organizational conflict that we haven't talked about, like inside of the organization that sells AppleCare. Like just maybe this is not a great example, but let's use this example for a second. The people that sell the products have to also tack on AppleCare, which they may or may not want to do. There's a whole nother team that's only incented by the service and the cost of selling AppleCare. They're financed by the sales of AppleCare to people bringing to the store, and then there's text in the back and all that kind of stuff. So I would think that like the less AppleCare subscriptions, the less of those people can work at the store, you know, that kind of thing. So it's like there's an organizational kind of like, well, if I jack up the price of AppleCare, it's harder to sell more phones and it's hard to sell AppleCare. I don't know how they deal with that kind of thing, but it is a conflict. Anything that requires being talked about between folks in the organization is a weakness of the model because, as we know on the podcast, people don't like to talk to people.
Exactly.
But yeah, customer resentment. I mean, you know, it's and then the AppleCare one.
Service is 24%.
So Apple doesn't break out AppleCare specifically, but it says it's responsible for 24%. Apple Services is responsible for 24% of the revenue.
Check the next bullet.
AppleCare and extended warranties are $8.4 billion in 2025. So a good amount.
Our nation's GDP. $8.4 billion.
The services division has substantially higher gross margin, around 75%, compared to the hardware sales, around 39%. That comes from Rando Google AI search. So that's interesting. Like the margins are way higher. If you were a company and you want to set up something like AppleCare for the first time, like there's a longer cycle to profitability.
Yeah.
You know, that's something to consider. It's a little less of a weakness, but it is something to consider. So the after sale business model, like it brings in a bunch of revenue, obviously for Apple, 24%. Yikes. That's pretty significant. Mm-hmm. It's all about capturing ongoing value through service, maintenance, and support without being a predatory. What was the previous one that we just talked about? The cycle business model, the predatory cycle business model.
I'm pretty sure you guys have other examples in mind, so please let us know.
Yeah.
Comments below.
Let's move on to the new product business model. And I know you want to know about a business model where being the first to market lets you charge a premium before your competitors arrive. Well, we're going to talk about the new product business model. So, are you playing it safe with incremental improvement while your competitors are launching breakthroughs? Are you watching first movers capture massive margin while you're still competing on price? Are you preaching that speed matters more than perfection while your company is moving way slower than you want to? We're going to talk about the new product business model. What if you continuously innovate? What if you can come up with some sort of business model where it was all about capturing first mover advantage over and over again, iterating and continually capturing first mover advantage over and over again before your competitors arrive? The speed to market is your competitive advantage. That is the new product business model.
It requires a certain DNA of a company to be there. I mean, to get there, first of all, and then to remain there for any period of time. So one company that springs to mind is Tesla. They did that with the innovation of the EV, capturing a pretty decent sized market and then defending that. Now, lately, there have been some competitive pressure from foreign brands, but in the US, Canada, they pretty much held their market share.
Yeah, first mover advantage. I mean, all the AI companies, but ChatGPT, Anthropic, like they both have first mover advantage here. Google's trying to catch up. NVIDIA is constantly reinventing its products. Like every 2 years, the H100s that all the AI stuff is trained on is like nobody else can do it other than those. Nobody else can do the training unless they have those chips. Obviously, you can charge whatever you want to charge because it's a brand new offering.
Yeah, for a period of time, you're dominating the markets.
And then the first movers shape the market. So like I think of every AI token business model that's out there.
Right. Yeah, and that breeds some sort of customer loyalty because people have seen that for the first time, like EVs, for example. And then your product becomes synonymous, your brand name rather, becomes synonymous with the product. So rather than saying EV, people say Tesla. This isn't just in this sort of market segment. In other cases, we talked the other day on the previous podcast about how tissues became synonymous, right, with Kleenex, the brand. Years ago, it used to be a vacuum cleaner, the brand Hoover. So it does give you that market-defining brand loyalty because you had first mover advantage.
Let's see. Are there weaknesses in this business? Are there weaknesses here?
Listen, the obvious weakness, to be able to market, to be able to dominate the market, you have to have a substantial R&D investment.
Oh, right.
So you have to have deep pockets. Yeah. That's the first weakness. If you don't have the money to invest, you're not going to be able to get there.
This is the opposite of what most people will say. It's like, oh, just put something out quick or whatever. It's like, I don't know. Like the longer I stay in the field, the more that I like that. We probably should do a different podcast just on because there is something to be said about the people that stay on and refine a product until it's like polished to a certain level, even if it's like ready to be shipped.
Yeah.
Like the old Apple, like holding all your releases until a certain day in the year and only releasing twice a year or whatever, other than security fixes, but like holding all of your features and then releasing in a big bang, big go. There's something to be said about that. And the high R&D costs is like the Airbnbs of the world. It's like, we don't have a big marketing kickoff launch. Well, how much money must you have to be able to hold all of your developments just for marketing reasons? You must have a lot of money. And I think about a lot of money in terms of like high R&D costs. It's like you have the money to take this team with all their high salaries or whatever and say, sit over there for 6 months, 8 months or whatever, develop this new model. And then when you're ready, big bang, whiz bang, whatever, big splash in the market. The other thing about the weaknesses of this model is somebody comes out with like, ooh, we're coming out with the latest, when Claude Code came out. What the heck is that? It's a brand new product. Leverages their product, brand new product. Like now they have to teach everyone. They have to spend time teaching. Even when the GPT models came out, GPT-2 came out, nobody cared.
Right.
It took them a while to teach the market. Okay, it's this machine learning and it's this token generation, prediction, that kind of stuff. And then taught the market enough to when their GPT-3 came out, then they had a breakthrough on their hands. So
there was that investment in teaching. You're right.
Yeah, and then if we're going to take the top two in this category, which is Anthropic and the old ChatGPT, then we're going to talk about the risk of fast followers.
Oh, yes.
Oh, DeepSeek would be a great example. Like OpenAI comes out, Sam Altman over here saying like, don't call it a bubble. And then DeepSeek's over here is like, we trained this model for $350 and it's pretty good. Just as good as your latest flagship model that cost $500 bajillion. And Sam Altman sheds a single tear.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing with these, right? Same thing. Now, along comes a foreign competitor, and
That's right.
not only is their product cheaper, but they would claim it's better.
Right. Well, claiming that you're super hot and got the greatest product and continually innovating and dropping models left and right all the time, you better keep doing that, because the minute you stop,
someone's going to overtake.
Which is why, I mean, I would argue that's why Claude is where they're at in the market. They just came out with a better model, and for a long enough time without responding that they were able to grab all that market share. So, the new product business model, like, it's about capturing first mover advantage if you can, through innovation and speed to market, if you can maintain it.
You've got to be able to withstand the pressure of continuously innovating, right?
And also, you can't be consuming your own product over here. You can't be like believing your own hype.
Right.
Which is basically, I'm just saying, don't be Sam Altman. That's what I'm saying. So if you're Sam Altman, give us a comment. That's what I'm saying right now.
If you're not, we'll take your comments too.
No, actually, if you're not Sam Altman, please give us a comment. We have 3 business models left. So we're on the bomb run here to the end of this podcast. We're going to talk about the relative market share business model. So you want to know the business model where the bigger market share equals way more profitability through the scale advantages. That's what we're going to talk about right now. Are you competing against market leaders who somehow charge less but make more money? Are you stuck with higher costs because you just can't scale like the big boys? The relative market share business model is about dominating market share to unlock cost advantages through scale. So it's being bigger makes you more profitable. That's the relative market share business model.
Yep. Yeah, and what springs to mind here is Amazon,
Walmart, right? Amazon, Google. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah. So jumping straight into the strengths of this business model, because this is I don't want to spend too much time on this business model because it is a business model. Be big so we can get better cuts. Yeah. But I mean, most people listen to the podcast are going to be like, yeah, I'll run out there and do this right away. The cost leadership, like the scale, allows you to use your leverage of just massive amounts to get discounts. Yeah. So you win on volume discounts to your suppliers, and that improves your margin, and you basically dictate the terms. That's what I'm saying.
Because you're scaled up, so you're front of mind for a lot of people.
And then the Googles of the world will say, like, the more data that people give us, the more transactions that we see, the better algorithms we can build, the better decisions we can make, basically.
More data.
Right.
Data pool is bigger.
Yeah. So, and then obviously the more, I think about the online processing world, AWS, only because I'm on the AWS stack now. It's like, if I pay so many dollars to keep a server running, there is some sort of balance where it's like, if I get more than X amount of concurrent users paying for the platform, there's a number that just balances out to zero what I pay for the platform. If I get a certain number over that, then it's pure profit, basically. Right. This number is there's a fixed cost leverage amount that you're spreading your costs over a larger amount of units. So your per unit becomes tiny.
Minuscule. Yeah.
Tiny. Yeah. So those are the strengths of this business model. I mean, there are weaknesses. Obviously, bureaucracy. Amazon's laying off thousands and thousands of people in manager positions right now because they want to be, quote, closer to, they want more money. They're saying that they want less bureaucracy in the organization. But also, as we know with Google, when you are the big dog in the market, you got to go buy innovation in-house. You don't build innovation. You buy it. So there's that.
You got to be able to afford that.
Yeah. And then of course, that's cool until the government comes in. And, it's antitrust or monopoly or whatever, any kind of function. I understand American government's not functional right now, but maybe other governments are functional, and they'll come in and just slam their fist down and be like, sorry, Apple, got to put batteries in your phones, or sorry, Apple, got to add USB-Cs in your phones or whatever. And then Apple says oh, okay, I guess we'll do that now. And then every other consumer will be like, what the how come you couldn't do that 3-4 years ago?
When I bought my phone new.
And they'll say, I like bread. I don't know. So I don't know what they'll say. They'll have no excuse because they always could have done it.
Sure.
The risks of this market is beyond a certain scale, like the additional. Once you dominate a market, like there's no deeper you can go in that market. Like there's only so much.
Keep innovating.
You can only lay off so many people until you just don't boost profits with layoffs anymore. That's what I'm saying. You can only fire 100% of the workers, and then you can't fire more workers to make any more money. So let's take online hosting platforms anymore. It's like there's only so much you can dominate that industry, buy competitors or whatever, and then charge until people just refuse to buy.
Yeah.
So like there is a limit. Just like the Chipotle CEO we were talking about earlier in the podcast, there's a limit where you make this much, you charge $1 per burrito, you sell 100,000 burritos, and then your margins are $100,000 or whatever. But then you sell to less people at a higher price, you make $120,000, but you cut out 20% of the people that you're selling. That equation has a lower limit of like 50% of people are not willing to buy burritos over this price point.
Yeah.
So now you're in a real conundrum. So that there's a diminishing returns that can really quickly turn around and ruin your business.
And we've seen that happen over the year. Right?
We've seen greed. We've seen greed happen.
Greed and grief.
Oh boy. So the relative market share business model, it's about dominating market share to unlock cost advantages and data benefits that competitors, they just can't match. Boy, if you like burritos, like hit us up in the comments. That's what I'm saying. How much would you be willing to pay for a burrito? That's what I'm asking on the podcast. That's not what I'm asking, but
essentially that's what you're asking.
That's what I'm asking. So the next business model we're going to talk about is the experience curve business model. This is one of my personal favorites, the experience curve. So you want to know the business model where doing the same thing over and over again makes you more profitable. This is the business model for you. The experience curve business model. So are you starting from scratch with every project like it's your first time? Like, we never see that in software development.
Oh, no.
Or are you watching experienced competitors lap you and do the same work for less money and faster?
More chocolatey.
And more chocolatey. And are you getting upset because every time you do something, you should be getting better and faster and more efficient, but you're not systematically capturing any improvement at all? What if I told you that every time you serve the market, you could have your costs be dropping, your efficiency improving, and your speed quickening?
It's got to be very alluring, I would think.
The accumulation of experience, that is your competitive advantage in the experience curve business model. This is one I feel does not translate to modern business right here.
You're going to say to software. What about businesses like the chip manufacturing company we talked about earlier?
TSMC.
TSMC.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Experience, stay focused, and they excel. They own the market.
I would argue that any auto manufacturing has to have this. And any kind of manufacturing. TSMC, I think about as manufacturing.
Sure.
Like they're manufacturing very specific niche products that require extreme skill. And I would expect you got to have deep skill and expertise to make you can't just like turn the machine on and hit the button.
No.
Yeah, like that's not the way it works. Like you need some skill to operate and to maintain those machines and to operate them properly. Any auto manufacturer would be the same way. Anything where they work on technology that goes to space, NASA, SpaceX, any of those types of blue, whatever Jeffrey Bezos' company is, Blue Origin. Jeff Bezos' space company is Blue Man Group. I can't remember. Cybersecurity and DevOps are also like on the DL, I think are in this business model in some way, shape, or form. But also like Southwest Airlines started in this business model because they only ran certain routes or routes. They only ran certain routes and they only ran them with like the 737s and that was it. They had one plane, one route, you know what I mean? And they just did that over and over again because they were very experienced at that. And that was it. So
great, if
we're going to stay on the strengths of this business model for a minute, continuous improvement, which includes your margins. Continuous improvement. Each iteration should be either increasing your expertise and or your cost, ideally both, and you should be getting more profitable over time.
Yeah, you're probably also increasing your brand loyalty over time as well. Keep your costs affordable for your customers.
Sure. Like you're compounding your knowledge with each iteration of continuous improvement. You're optimizing processes, which is basically the same as continuous improvement. And then you're increasing quality to everybody in that value chain of your company, the internal employees, board members, stakeholders, and of course, customers. And that should be the experience curve business model. We got experts doing an expert job, and we all fully support them. Like that's like the opposite end of this business. Like what corporate America is currently doing right now, not hiring juniors at all. You know, sort of at the opposite end, or maybe it isn't at the opposite end because the senior jobs are kind of they're on an uptick right now in the market. Anyway, maybe we'll have another podcast about the market.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that are advantageous and strengths of this business model, but it's not all strengths because every business model has weaknesses. Let's talk about some here, which is obviously the technology disruption, or really disruption of any kind, but technological disruption. Like you can run the best newspaper company in the world, but here comes Google's AI on every page to give you all the news, whether it's true or false, doesn't matter. People can't tell the difference.
That's right. Exactly. I agree. And that's a good example. The publishing industry is a good example. They were basically dominant at one point, and they didn't really see it coming. They also ignored the trend that the modern generation, they don't really read newspapers. Right. They consume news in different ways.
There was two things that happened in newspapers. I think the technology disruption, number one, and also the market shift risk that basically, like, which also happened with Napster to music.
Yeah,
is that they decided like the cost of acquiring music is now going to drop to zero. What are you going to do? Record companies.
Yeah.
Charging whatever $18 a CD or whatever when you only wanted one track. I'm not saying the model wasn't total garbage before, but the market shift was totally ripe to be shifted. Yeah,
and they shifted it.
And I would say also, if you have no mechanisms in your company for knowledge transfer, this is not your business model.
Yeah, you can't sustain yourself if you're going to not have that.
Yeah. One of the things I would ask about this one is the Toyota system will say you have continuous improvement and it just keeps going on and on forever. But at some point, wouldn't you reach a pinnacle level where, you know what I mean? It's like, how many different ways can you put in lug nuts? I'm just saying, wouldn't you streamline to a point where the improvements are diminishing? You know what I mean? You have diminishing returns on your continuous improvement. Maybe not in like Southwest Airlines.
Yeah, but the diminishing returns wouldn't happen everywhere in your business. I mean, maybe in some places, but in other places you can constantly be in a pursuit of perfection.
Yeah,
it's in the chase all the time.
Well, that's the experience curve business model. It's all about capturing learning and efficiency gains by repetition and continuously reducing costs. Of a continual learning, continual improvement type of business model. This is a good one. We have, I'm sure, in the past. We've never done a Toyota specific episode, but that would be this business model when it comes to that side of their business. So we're going to jump to the low cost business model. Do you want to know the business model where your entire business is designed to have structural cost advantages that competitors cannot match? Are you trapped in a high cost business model? Are you watching low cost competitors undercut you while they make great margins and your margins are like super slim? Are you trying to cut costs incrementally while competitors have fundamentally different cost structures? Are you frustrated because you're trapped in this high cost business model and you don't know how to get out of it? Then let's talk about the low cost design business model. So the low cost, we talked a little bit about Southwest in that they only ran point-to-point routes.
And use specific equipment.
We wouldn't use specific equipment. There's also IKEA. Like you might consider IKEA low quality. However, it's a low cost to them, right? Yeah. To produce business model. And then Dropbox is another one of the, and Dropbox is really any online subscription kind of product where if you onboard to their solution, their cost, because they've already set up their infrastructure and everything, is near zero to onboard you. Nobody talks to anyone. Nobody knows that you joined the platform. I know we talk about Southwest as far as airlines, but there are other airlines like Spirit Air, Ryanair. There's other things that are known for being low cost. Yeah. They're known for being low cost carriers. And grocery stores do this too. They have like knockoff generic products and whatnot. Low cost. It costs them nearly nothing to produce. High margin. The strengths of these business model is it's a structural cost advantage. Your business model structurally creates these cheap products that other competitors, they'd have to invest a lot of capital to make things that cheap. And they're just not going to,
Yeah, and you could be profitable at a lower revenue. Cost is lower.
Because your cost is lower. And in order to do that, the discipline required to be able to do that, like in the case of Southwest, is like, well, how many mechanics would like American Airlines, for example, have? Well, all Southwest mechanics, they're all 737 mechanics. 100% of them.
Yeah.
And like, okay, well, it's pretty to train the new mechanics on the new fleet. Pilots would be another one. You train your new pilots on all the new...
Pilots is a good one, because, I mean, obviously your costs are higher there to train pilots. I agree. I think that's true. Whereas the alternative, like another airline, they could have other disadvantages. Like your one or two mechanics that you have specifically for an equipment, right? I don't know what that might be, 777. They're not available.
Right.
Out sick.
Right.
Now what do you do? Whereas here, you can bring someone in
Right.
at the drop of a note, quick notice, because it's all 737. It gives you those advantages.
You know, the strengths that I really enjoy about this business model, and you don't even need to be like low cost, in my mind, shares space with like cheap. You know what I mean? Like cheap meaning like low quality. It doesn't have to be low quality. Because like in the case of like a Southwest Airlines, for example, or like a Dropbox, we do one thing.
Do it well.
We do file sharing, file syncing. You install the thing on your computer. It syncs your files to the cloud that you put in there. You have a limited amount of space, but it syncs your files to the cloud, and any other computer that you join like gets those files. That's it. That's the only thing we do. Now Dropbox does a million things. That's good. Like they kind of don't understand what they were good at, but that one thing, if you can keep your company costs in control, your scalability, if you can keep the low costs in control, boy, that competitive moat that you just drew around yourself,
formidable, isn't it?
They'll really have to sabotage themselves. I think about like a Google or somebody to say like, hey, we're willing to lose money for 10 years to be able to compete with you. I would expect like, why would they do that? I can think of like the Amazon 6-pager of like, we should lose money for 10 years just because nobody else is competing. I don't think they would do that. I think at an Amazon level, one of the big boys out there, I think they would just buy you, and then that'd be the end of it. You know, that's more likely that's what they'll do than try to roll their own solution. It is a moat. I mean, the pricing has to be right, but it is a moat.
Yeah, I agree, and it is quite a solid proposition there. So it's a formidable moat if you get it right. So lastly, on this, the 4 column, low cost allows you to scale better than high cost alternatives because again, your costs are low, so your scaling costs are correspondingly lower as well, where your costs are higher. So growth is more efficient for your money, right?
So in the weaknesses, we already talked about quality. Let's just lay that one out on the table and kind of look at what it means. So low cost, oh boy. I will tell you right now, I am not getting on a Spirit Airlines aircraft right now. I like oxygen mask when my plane goes over 10,000 feet and needs to descend.
Now you're asking for too much.
You know what? I don't know, man.
Get it out the window.
Yeah, I like drink service on my plane is what I'm saying. I like,
I'm with you there.
Listen, the air travel, you're already crammed in. There's only so many things you can take away from me before I start.
Right.
I mean, like software, I think of the same way is, hey, too many ads or too much garbage or too much bloat in there, and I'm looking for alternatives. Like low cost should not necessarily mean reduced service. And when you're asking the customer to make sacrifices, not just you don't get perks to make sacrifices. Like, for example, like you can't take anything on the plane with you. Come on, dude. Everyone's got a backpack or a roller bag when they're flying.
Yeah.
Nobody flies with a toothbrush in their pocket and that's it. Right. That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. But that's where we are today, sadly. The perception is an issue here, right? Low cost is perceived to be inferior. Mm-hmm. So people think, oh, you pay a little bit more, you'll get more. That's not always true either.
There's a commoditization risk here where like people don't see the advantages of your solution anymore. Like airfare, for example. I have preferred airlines. And I know people that have preferred hotels too because they have points or whatever, that kind of stuff. But some people just get on whatever site they look on for airline and just take the cheapest flight. They don't care what it is. Like it's commoditized. They don't care at all. Home insurance, for example. You come at me with a cheaper rate than I'm getting now, I'm taking it. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. It's commoditized. It's like nobody uses it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. At the end of the day, though, you got to look deeper, right, as a customer.
Yeah, maybe. Some of these are like, they're just cheap. They're cheap service and not great business models.
Yeah.
But again, like some of these I just would never, I'm not going to fly on an airline. It's like, sorry, Brian, you can't take anything but your toothbrush and I'm going to charge you. Hey, man, I don't want to be nickel and dimed. Right. Like, get out of my pocket. And get out of my life. Shut the door on your way out. Who are you? How'd you get in my house? Remember when we talked about the pyramid business model, where like your luxury brand's at the top, and then you're like entry level brand, like the Cadillac brand is at the very top.
Yeah. That's
your premium product, and then the very bottom is like your Chevrolet, whatever, entry level, college kid car or whatever. This sort of has vibes of that. It's like this is your low tier product. You're looking to undercut all the market, re-segment all the current competitors into like a mid-tier or a high tier, right? And then come in under them where you can get away where like the majority of people just looking for a cheap ride to the airport or whatever it is, right? You're going to come in and undercut all of them. I think about how easy it would be for someone to kick Uber out of a local market, to just launch like an Uber-like app and just like have the branding of like the driver takes 60%, we take 40%. You know, the driver take like call it like I'm coming up with a business right now on the spot of like kicking Uber out of a local hyper local market, just one city at a time. It doesn't have to be a whole city. You know what I mean? Just one like 5 mile block at a time, 5 mile area at a time, saying like, we are the driver's app of like, when you go with us, the driver is guaranteed to get 60%. We'll show you all of the transparency of billing. And I think with a product like that, I think you could kick Uber out of a market. Like, it's like you could be low quality, charge less, make less money. Yeah. But you're going up, like each like server and infrastructure, whatever you stand up would be specific to that city. And if they wouldn't have to scale them bajillion times, or whatever. Yeah. So you'd have scale up costs and stuff like that, but it'd be like city by city. You know, you would come in undercutting the market. I wanted to stay on this one a little longer because we beat up the weaknesses of this one a little bit. But I want to point out, as the product manager, I see a lot of potential in this, especially in the era of vibe coding. Because that's what a lot of the Silicon Valley CEOs and those guys, that's what they're super scared of. They're super scared of people going through and getting rejected from going through and be like, sorry, you're above 40, you got 20 years experience. We're looking for someone with more energy. And they're worried about those people going and vibe coding a replacement solution, dropping it in and just replacing their whole business.
Significant threat to them, though. Yes, agreed.
So this is a great way to get your foot underneath almost any business. The low cost business design, the low cost business model.
Absolutely. Only good things will happen to you if you did that, I think, right? I mean, you could run into the ceiling there of scaling up, but alternatively, one of the big boys will buy out. So there you go.
So the low cost business model, it's about fundamentally redesigning your business for structural cost advantage. So good luck, everyone. Let us know if you put Uber out of business in the comments.
Yes, indeed.
The last business model that we have, you want to know the business model where limiting supply lets you charge 500 to 5,000% markup.
Those are absurd numbers, Brian, but I understand where this model is. I mean, I can think of products that fall into this. I absolutely want to hear about it. I'm sure our audience does too.
So are you maximizing volume when you should be limiting your supply? Are you watching other brands charge 10 times more for the same product that you produce? Are you frustrated because you think that your product is better and superior to other more profitable products? Then I got a business model for you. It's called the Scarcity business model.
It's about commanding a premium price for the fewer number of products that you produce in terms of what your output is.
I would also say that this is the Scarcity business model. It's also not like the Ferraris, luxury brands that are made like Rolexes, like Rolex, that are made in limited numbers. Like some trading cards and stuff do this. They're made in limited numbers to drive the price up. That is part of the strengths of this model. However, this can be used with some of the other business models to lead into a real business model.
A different one.
But it has limits. You know what I mean? It has limits. I mean, how many cars can Ferrari make? Well, they make a lot of money. Yeah, but what if they want to make double the amount of money? They're not just going to double the amount that their cars cost. There are some limits in place. Sure. But if you think about the original Gmail when it came out, when you had to get an invite, or like early OpenAI, I was part of a company that had access early to OpenAI's ChatGPT when 3 came out, which was pretty cool. Clubhouse, the original Clubhouse, you had to have an invite.
That's right.
I think of it like some of the...
I missed that product.
Isn't the new video generation model, I think you have to have an invite. Or AI for TikTok, like AI Talk or whatever. Anyway, you have to have an invite for that. Yeah. So on one hand, it's not necessarily a full business model. It's more like a marketing tactic to pivot you into another bit. So it is a business model, but it pivots you into another business model. You know?
I mean, for all the good things that it does, right? I mean, it increases brand loyalty because customers are now competing to buy your product.
We're talking about strengths now. Brand prestige.
Nike limiting the number of sneakers they produce for a specific brand model, right? Mm-hmm. There are other examples like that. You already talked about Ferraris and whatnot. Not only is the volume controlled, right? Yep. They stamp each item with a number. So there's exclusivity. Everybody wants the top 5 or top 2.
You know what another one is there are social media accounts, various. So I don't know, I'm not going to name a specific platform, but like people will go and create like a social media group like on a certain platform. They'll go create a group and get a bunch of followers or whatever, and then they'll sell the group to somebody else. The new person will change the group name, and they'll immediately have They do that on a particular platform that may or may not own more than one social media platform. The scarcity is like you're in that group. The money they make off of the sale of that group that they've curated, this audience, that's a scarcity model, I would argue. There's demand generation, scarcity creating desire and urgency, right?
Yeah.
The extreme pricing power, we talk about the luxury brands. So you have extreme pricing power. I mean, Ferrari, I guess, could double the price of their cars overnight if they wanted, and they probably would still sell cars, And then there's a whole nother, like the resale market. There's a whole, the trading cards do this exclusively where there's a resale market, and some of the trading card companies have a share in that resale market and some don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people would understand the car analogy. Porsche does this very, very well because not only do they make limited numbers of their high-end models, we're talking about cars that cost over $200,000 US dollars, but they also then say, well, if you can't get one of those, how about one that we're selling for 120 or 140? It's only 0.3 seconds slower. It's brand prestige. People follow that.
You're selling FOMO right there. You're selling scarcity.
Sure.
You're selling exclusivity.
Exactly what
at that
you're
point.
when you buy that.
This is the old saying that like the BMW commercials are not to convince anyone they should buy a BMW. They're for the current owners of BMWs to reinforce that, like, yes, you're in this exclusive brand. Is there weaknesses of this model?
Yes, there are, just like all the other models, right? First of all, because you're selling your items at such a high premium price, you have revenue limitation. Total addressable market's also smaller.
This is the Ferrari example I said earlier. You can't just double all.
Exactly. And what happens if there's an economic downturn? People aren't buying Ferraris today, or not as many people are.
Right. We talked about the limitations of the revenue. You can't just triple whatever you want. So
there's also a very delicate balance between oversupply and undersupply. Right. Oversupply dilutes your scarcity.
Right.
And undersupply frustrates the customers because they can't get their hands on it.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, all of these makes and models that we've cited today do play that game.
Yeah.
Like they will reduce supply, but there's a limit.
Well, that's the scarcity business model. It's all about deliberately limiting supply to create an exclusivity and to command extreme power over pricing. I don't know how you would do this in a normal, I would think you can do this in a software business. I'm just not sure how, other than the Clubhouse example where it's limited open beta, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Games do this at launch. They have that kind of thing.
Right.
But this is an interesting business model. Most people don't leverage their whole business off of this. They use it to lead into some sort of expansion and broader
You may
business.
start with this,
Right.
and then the revenue you generate, you could use to segue into another model.
Yeah. So if you have questions about the scarcity business model, let us know in the comments. And that will wrap up our review of business models, part 1 and 2 review of business models, 23 business models from the book, The Art of Profitability by Adrian Slywotzky.
Slywotzky, yeah. This is an MBA in 2 episodes, folks.
If you enjoyed this one, if you have other business models that maybe we forgot, if anyone read a later version of the book and there's any business models that we missed, because like I said, when I read the book, I think Scarcity was called Digital, or maybe another one was called Digital. Anyway, It wasn't in the version that I got these examples from. But I'm interested to know if people like this or didn't like it.
What names and numbers?
That's right. Or if there were other things that we could have expanded on. I mean, we kind of breezed through just because there were so many of them. But we probably could have picked my favorite 3 or 4 out of here. I mean, the customer solutions one, where we were talking about Palantir, and then the pyramid, and then the low-cost model.
Those 3 would be a huge
just
podcast.
those.
So let us know down below your interest and any other topics you'd like us to delve into.
That's right.
And always like and subscribe, because every like helps a whale somewhere.
Oh, that is true. That's true.